Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
I would recommend Angel Care to anybody. They have really helped me regain my strength.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
I couldn't have survived this without Angels Care.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our producer, as always, Jeff Durall. We're at Ellis County Emergency Management Services, the new facility at 1105 East 22nd in Hayes, with the Director of Education, Lillian Slater, as we talk about the new facility and about emergency medical services in general. We should mention at the outset the Director of EMS, Carrie McHugh, is on medical leave, and we picked on Lillian. She agreed to help us out with our community connection because we wanted you to see this new facility and find out a little bit more about it. Thanks for sitting in for Carrie, Lillian. We appreciate it. The new facility, of course, obviously a needed facility. Many of us have thought for years and years. Yes. Good to have the County Commission come through with being able to fund this new facility.
Yes, it was. We have so much more room than we did before, which is so important, as far as, keeping the equipment where it needs to be, being able to check the trucks in the mornings. In the former facility, the trucks were probably no more than 4 or 5 feet apart. They couldn't open the doors to check the compartments in the trucks, and so they always had to move them outside to do that. And in this facility, as you could see, they're a distance from each other. They can walk around the trucks. They can make sure that they're ready to go, and also check all the trucks and make sure that all the equipment is on board without actually taking the truck outside.
I'm glad you mentioned to start with some of the new facilities and how they impact the service of EMS, because that's very important. There are other areas too as well, and those include savings as well as the area of just efficiency for EMS.
We used to have all the supplies. A lot of them were in the garage. There were some of them that were inside, but we just didn't have room for them, so they were bagged outside in the garage to keep them clean because of the diesel fumes that obviously comes off the trucks. And sometimes, those we'd have to throw them away after so long because they'd been out, where now we have all those supplies are indoors. They're kept, at temperature-wise, they're kept at the right temperature, and so we know that is a savings by all means. Also, the fact that the diesel fumes are away from the living quarters for the technicians and away from the office areas is a health factor also. And so that's all important too for this facility.
Well, I think, Lillian, there's something too to be said about the amenities as far as the people who work here, because they spend about a third of their lives here,
yes,
I
they
think.
Do.
And those amenities should be something that makes them comfortable and efficient as well, so that they can do the optimum job.
They have a wonderful area where they can, for the living area. Unfortunately, they don't always get to spend a lot of time there because we are a busy service, but at least, that is available to them. There's a wonderful kitchen in there where they can prepare their meals. The bunk areas are individual now, where they used to all be in the same very small room, and so that's much nicer for them. And we also have areas to train, which that is for me, that's very, very important. In the former facility, we actually had to pull everything out and then put everything back. A lot of the training equipment was kept off-site. We had some that was out at the hospital because the hospital was always gracious enough to allow us to do large classes out, in some of their training rooms. And we also had equipment over in storage. We had some equipment in my garage. And so it seemed like every time you wanted something, you first have to run around town trying to find it. And where now it's all in one place. It's organized. It doesn't have to be pulled out and put back. And so you know, for me, that was a dream come true.
Well, yeah, as Director of Education, it makes it much more efficient,
Yes, it
and the
does.
training can be much more efficient from that
Sure.
standpoint.
You know, they're required to have, you know, 60 hours every 2 years as far as continuing education, which, you know, if you look at that, you know, I'm also a nurse. I'm only required to get 30 hours every 2 years. So, you know, there is more education that's required for the paramedics. And it's becoming more and more specific, I mean, as far as what they need to have. And, you know, things are always changing. You know, what we did when I first started in the 80s is a lot different than what they're doing now. And, you know, everything is evidence-based now, so we're seeing new things come up. And so it's just important that we have an area where we can do education and do it effectively.
How about numbers? How many make up EMS as far as the actual paramedics and
The
staff
number
and so
here,
forth? Yeah.
we have around 40. Now, some of them are EMTAs, which is kind of a intermediate, and then we have some that are EMTs. The majority of them are paramedics. We also have, I think there are three of our people in the current paramedic class. So
And
they'll
you
move
also
up.
have staffing in Ellis and in Victoria
Yes, we
as
do.
well. Full staff, right?
Yes, yes. There's a truck located in Ellis, and there's a truck in Victoria. They are both ALS trucks, which means they have a paramedic on that truck.
Lillian, about how many runs on an average, well, let's say week maybe, would EMS be responsible for?
Well, we average about, I believe it's around 12 per day. So, you know, it would,
Wow.
you know, you can kind of put that number to the 7 days. And, you know, there's some days, yes, you might not have more than 5 calls, but there's other days you're going to have 20-some. So we also do a lot of out-of-county transfers. And so, you know, that also adds into it, because then you have a truck that might be gone 8 hours rather than just the usual hour that it takes to make an emergent call.
And what kind of responses does EMS, what are you responsible for in the way of calls? What types of things do you respond to?
Well, it's a variety of things, you know, because what makes an emergency for a patient? It's, you know, it means that things are beyond what they're able to control. And so again, and it depends, you know, a lot on the person. I mean, we don't see as many pediatrics because obviously pediatrics can be picked up and carried. I mean, if we could carry adults, we probably might be out of business. I don't know. But, you know, so we don't see, but when we do see pediatrics, obviously, they're usually bad calls, or they're the extremist. We see a lot of elderly people, and, you know, just like all of Western Kansas, we're becoming more elderly. We also see a lot of cardiac patients out here. I don't know, maybe it's the good beef we eat, I don't know. But anyway, we do see quite a few cardiacs, a lot of respiratory, and so just a variety. We see some trauma, probably not as much trauma as you're going to see in Russell County or Trego County. And you know what we've thought of, you know, why is that? Well, we always think maybe they stop here to eat, so they're kind of refreshed, and then when they get, you know, that 30 miles down the road, then they fall asleep or whatever happens. But we do see our share, but, you know, not probably per capita as much as they see in some counties in Western Kansas.
And I suppose that would relate to all ages too,
Sure.
as a matter of fact.
Sure.
What kind of person would work at EMS? What are some of the attributes of employees for EMS?
I think they have to be able to critically think under a lot of pressure, and just be, they have to be able to adapt to situations very quickly. Yes. They have to be able to communicate with a variety of people, and patients. When we go to somebody's home, or we meet them out on the highway, they're obviously, this might be their first time there on an ambulance, where we get in the trucks quite frequently. We're used to that. But this might be the first time they've been exposed to emergency services, and so they're not usually, maybe they're not thinking quite as clearly as they would normally think, maybe the anxiety and everything else that goes along with it. So it's very important that they be able to talk to them and get them to kind of calm down and give us the information that we need so that we can treat them appropriately.
And then they have to also relate to other staff members, to hospitals
yes.
to a
We
lot of
work
different
with the
communication areas.
Yes, we work very closely with the fire department. You know, they in town, Hayes Fire Department responds with us on all calls. That gives us extra people to move people and to get supplies when it's an emergency. And in the rural areas, the rural fire works with us, and police. You know, you have to be able to communicate with them and know what their priorities are. Obviously, the people at the hospital. We work with, you know, we transfer some with Eagle Med, so, you know, that's another entity. And so communication is just a really important
And all of this
part what they do.
communication is tied together, including those areas of Ellis and Victoria,
yes.
right?
And you know, Ellis and Victoria, those trucks are located there, but they are used throughout the county as, you know, because if we have 2 trucks out here, so we've got our personnel out here, we will bring them in to a closer, you know, to a closer area, either maybe Toulon or Yosemite, so that if something happened in Hayes, they wouldn't be that far away from Hayes either, yet they can still be within, you know, close distance to Victoria or Ellis. So they move, what we call move central every now and then too. So they're not just sitting there waiting for a call in that community.
I'm glad you mentioned that split-second
Sure.
decisions and very important calling on their knowledge, if you will, as well as the communication.
And you know, they have to make quick judgments. And you know, we all know that when you make judgments like that, you know, it might not be the best judgment the first time, but you better be able to regroup and make a better one very quickly. And so, you know, we don't, you know, you can't expect perfection, but you expect them to be able to think quickly and maybe revise something that was done.
As we mentioned, Lillian is Director of Education and is in the midst of a paramedic class now. Tell us about that class, Lillian.
Well, we contract with Barton County Community College to do the course, and so because all paramedic programs have to be done through a junior college or a 4-year college. You can no longer have a standalone paramedic class because they are accredited now in Kansas, which is, you know, where there aren't that many states that require that. So that's kind of a neat thing for Kansas. And the class is around 17 months long. It's 2 days a week. And then they will do an extensive clinical time out at one of the hospitals in the area, and then a extremely long field internship with a Type 1 service or an ALS service. So it's
intensive, isn't
it's
it?
very intensive, and
Wow.
you know, and so it takes quite a commitment from them. And but we find in Ellis County, just like I think they find all across western Kansas, you almost have to home grow these people, because you know, people who are in Kansas City, and there's several programs in Kansas City, but do they want to come out to western Kansas when they are used to? It's just like telling one of our people, well, you can be a paramedic, but you're going to have to go be a paramedic in Kansas City. They are familiar, they're accustomed to their community, they like where they live, they have family here, so we can keep them. You know, the attrition of, you know, with paramedics tends to be very high in a lot of areas. And, you know, and also, you know, it's a young person's field as far as the field.
Yeah.
You know, they have to be able to lift, they have to be able to climb up and down in a truck and run down ditches and back up with more weight than, you know, most people would think about having to carry. And so, you know, we have to continue to grow that pool.
And it's nice to have those people from the area, as you say, with a
Yes.
lot of attributes that
Sure.
they can relate to
Yes,
local populations.
Yes, because you know, I think that if you have a tie to the community, then you have a tie to the patient, and you know, the patients, you relate better to the patients.
And with the physical necessities of the job, you've got to be physically fit as well,
Yes, they do.
right?
Yes, they do. They have to be able to lift. Now, we are fortunate in the last, I think it's been 2 years, that we've been putting the power cots on the trucks, which, you know, it's just something, again, things have changed. I remember the time when we had cots that you actually had to pick them up to put them in the back of the truck. In other words, they weren't the slide-in kind. And, you know, you had too many people with back injuries. And so with these, they are power cots. They come up by the push of a button. They also load, and so you know, you're not having all that strain on people of getting those cots. They're also safer for the patient. And, you know, and the fact that we do have the fire department, we can always four-corner a cot bringing it out. And again, it's safer for us. It makes the patient feel more secure because, you know, when you're having somebody carry you down 3 or 4 steps and it's 2 people and, you know, you're counting on those 2 people not to misstep, it just makes the patient feel a lot more secure also.
And means that people can be on the job without
Yes.
serious injuries
Sure.
occurring
Sure.
from that job
Yes.
itself.
Yeah, because a lot of times that is what takes a paramedic out is physical injury.
You've been at this a while. Any big
have.
memories?
Oh, I have lots of memories.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, it's been a wonderful, wonderful trip or wonderful journey. You know, we just the people I've met, patients. You know, because obviously I teach, and you know, of course, we don't mention patient names, but you know, you talk about calls that you've had because you know, if you depend on everybody to learn from their own experience, then they're going to have somewhat of a knowledge base. But if they can learn from everyone's experience, and then it broadens their knowledge base to the point that they can be experts in the field. And so, yeah, it's a wonderful field to be in.
Lillian Slater, Director of Education for Ellis County EMS, our best to Kerry McHugh,
Yes,
too, on his
yes.
medical leave. And Lillian being one of those great people who make Ellis County such a wonderful place with emergency medical services and all of the staff and crew in the new facility at 1105 East 22nd, our Community Connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
There's not any words to describe their kindness.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible. Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
They saved my life.